Hello and welcome back to this web series on System Center Operations Manager 2012 R2 covering installation and configuration. My name is Daniel Queen and you are watching part 2 where we are going to cover creating all the service accounts that are necessary for us to run our SCOM 2012 R2 environment. We're going to be creating those in Active Directory. Now, a couple points before we begin. There's only one real design consideration when it comes to creating service accounts, and that, of course, is the security scope of them. Low privilege accounts. Microsoft has a very good TechNet article covering the various permissions, the minimum necessary permissions that each of these accounts needs. We are going to be building our accounts with how you would probably most often build them, and you can go lower privilege if necessary. I would just refer out to that document if your security provisioning people start giving you grief over that. Now, the accounts that we're actually going to be needing in this section are a management server action account. This account is the account that the service will run the Microsoft Monitoring Agent, which it is called now. It used to be called the System Center Management Service. This is the account that service will be running under. You could use local system, or you could give it a domain account. I prefer a domain account for this one. With this account, you can also run actions against remote computers, like installing agents, or you can provide different credentials. Our configuration and data access service account is the account by which the management server will communicate with the operational database and is really the core of the communication that will be taking place. Our data reader and our data writer account correspond to the data warehouse and our reporting systems. Really, these just facilitate reading and writing from the data warehouse database. With all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right in on creating our accounts. So here I am logged into my domain controller, and we're going to go ahead and use the Active Directory Users and Computers management tool to go ahead and create our accounts. As you can see, the only account I've created so far is just my personal account, which is a domain admin. Before we actually create our operations manager accounts, I do like to use a domain account to run my SQL Server services. I like to start all my service accounts with SVC underscore. That's just a personal preference. So I'm going to call this SVC underscore SQL Server. Give it a password. I don't want to change it to the next logon, and I don't want it to expire because, well, A, this is a lab, and B, it's a service account. Okay, now let's actually create our operations manager accounts. This first one, as I said before, is going to be the SCOM management server action account. I'll call this SVC underscore SCOM MSA. Password, set the options. And we're going to replicate this process 3 more times. We're going to create the config and data access service account, if I can spell. I'm going to call this one SVC underscore SCOM DAS. Create our SCOM data reader account. DATRD. And one more for our SCOM data writer account. SVC underscore SCOM DAT WRT. Now, a quick note, there are some other accounts that we can and might use later on such as an agent action account, which would be which domain account the individual agent's Microsoft monitoring agent service will run under. Again, you can make that a very low privileged account. I typically run that as local system, but you could use a domain user if you wanted to. Likewise, when we get to a gateway, we could be using a gateway server action account, and there's a slew of other accounts when we start getting into IIS setup, but for now this will suffice. One last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a security group, a domain local group that we are going to use for controlling administrative access into the SCOM console. So I'm just going to call it SCOM admins, domain local, and it doesn't matter, you could do global, I just prefer local for limiting security access. Add myself. All right, and that is all of our accounts that we are going to need. So this wraps up part 2, and in part 3 we're going to begin installing and setting up SQL Server. Thank you for watching, and I will see you there.